Hey guys, it's Brett. Thank you for stopping by my channel, and we are here at the end of September. The year is going down the drain. September. I read 9 books this month. They were kind of a mixed bag for me. I liked a couple a lot, and everything else I was kind of like, yeah, that's pretty good, but nothing I felt like I have to say, you have to buy this book, or get this book from the library, or listen to this book on audio, or however you read your books. So let's just take a beat, say goodbye to September, and then dive in. All right, so first for me, I'm just going down on order of size more than anything else, was case studies by Graeme, Macrae, Burnet. This was one of the long listed books for the Booker Prize. This was overall a very nice surprise for me, because I had started this right when they were announcing the shortlist, and this didn't make the shortlist, but I still was like, well, I'm going to finish it. And it's a very interesting story about a woman whose sister dies while under the care of a psychologist, and she believes this psychologist was instrumental in her sister committing suicide. So she poses as another woman, other than herself, and acts as a patient and says she wants to see him as she tries to uncover, what he actually did. He is a very unorthodox therapist, and a large part of the book is his history and how he became who he is. Like Trust, which was also on the long list, this was another story about what is real, what do we tell people about our identity, who we really are, because so much of this is her masking her identity, and almost how this new identity that she creates for herself is far more interesting than who she actually is. So I thought it brought up a lot of really interesting ideas. The narrative, it was almost like a kind of suspense type book. Where it bottomed out for me, or just wasn't as successful, I felt like the ending, I was expecting a bang, and it was just kind of a whimper. And so it was so disappointing. I really thought by the end, I was like, how is this not on the long list? The short list, this is so great, and I love what it's doing. And then I got to the end and I was like, okay. So that's my thoughts. And for those of you who read this as well, I would love to know what you think. All right, My Policeman, I just talked about this the other day, by Bethan Roberts. Obviously, this is going to be the movie that's out shortly with Harry Styles. I liked so much of this. I really enjoyed this book overall. It's a story, it's a love triangle between a man who is a policeman in London, who is struggling with his sexuality, who gets involved with a woman, because I think he feels that this is what he should be doing. He meets this man who is a museum curator, an older gentleman who he starts to have a relationship with. The story starts in the present and is told through flashbacks, through alternating chapters between the woman and the museum curator. Tom, the policeman, doesn't actually get his own chapter. He's just kind of spoken about very reverentially by the two characters. It's a really interesting book. I do have to say, the one thing I felt by the end of this is this, like so many books, a lot of gay literature, I'm kind of ready to move along from the narrative that I can't deal with my sexuality and I'm going to do something tragic, or something tragic happens to me because of my sexuality. And I don't know. So I understand too that this was loosely based on E.M. Forster, which again, I had intended to read because I'm kind of reading all of these books about E.M. Forster. So this was based very loosely on his relationship with a policeman. But again, I'm kind of, as I said in my Instagram review, I'm really enjoying where modern kind of LGBTQ lit is going, which is just being people that are gay, that are in the circumstances like anybody else, that don't necessarily mean that you're struggling with your sexuality and are going to, do something drastic because of it. But all that to say, I think this is a really good book. I'm interested to see what they do with the movie. I'm not completely convinced that Harry Styles is the guy, but I'm more than happy to be surprised and wrong in that front. So, but I would say really, really well done, decent read. I don't know what to say about Treacle Walker. This is another book on the short list this is on the short list of the Booker. It was on the long list. So I read this last weekend. The best thing I could say is this: it's short. I'm not the person for this book, so I'm going to tip my hat to the judges of the Booker, as well as to many people, probably in the UK, who have a better understanding about the kind of things that he's basing this story on, the kind of Irish folktales, the references to the books that the boy reads in this. They're all stuff that's very specific. So for me, it wasn't like I was lost. It was a little bit lost on me. So that's all. I don't really have much to say about it except for
I read this.
I read this too, which I have talked about previously, The Seven Moons of Maali Almeida, another of the shortlist titles. This is, for me, the one I hope wins. I loved this book. It's about a man who is dead from the start of the book, who is investigating and trying to find out who killed him. And so it's part thriller, but not in a traditional thriller sense. It takes its time. It's weird because he's spending his afterlife in this kind of purgatory with all of these other characters who are also in this space. But it's really, really, really fascinating. There were times that I got confused, and I had to look up some of the history of Sri Lanka to know everything that was being talked about in here, which, by the way, is not a bad thing. But I just thought it was great and funny and really interesting. One I would highly, highly, highly recommend. This was probably one of my favorites, if not my favorite, of the month. One of my other favorites, Blackpool Can Fly. I've pulled this title up periodically over the last few videos I've done, by Randall Kenan. Like I said before, Randall Kenan, I read his fiction collection that was shortlisted for the Aspen Words, and that was good. It was really good. But these are fantastic. He is really a beautiful writer. Some of these are almost philosophical in nature. They're all essays about growing up in North Carolina, about what it means to be Black, all about identity. I found the whole thing really fascinating. It's not that long. I would highly recommend this. I'm gonna probably bring this back again when I get into to nonfiction November, because I just think it's so worth exploring, and I hope more people do. It got a rave review in the New York Times 2 or 3 weeks ago. I want to read this one section. He's talking about, he really goes on this odyssey, this quest, and travels to find out really what it means to be Black. So I just love this bit that he says, "The truth is there are over 36 million ways to be Black. From the curious guy who raises pigeons on the roof across the street from me, who wears the same jacket 365 days a year, to the Tennessee mountain minister who teaches Greek and Latin to high school students, to the NBA player from Lake Charles, Louisiana, who loves his mother to death, to the matriarch of an apple orchard in Washington State who hates to see her children go off to school, to the crack addict in some Philadelphia alley with a hard-on and 37 cents to his name, just wanting to stay up and up, to the congresswoman, to the cowgirl, to the fisherman, to the dog catcher, to the young lovers, at this very moment engaged in that ancient act that will undoubtedly bring 9 months hence yet another brown-skinned girl or brown-skinned boy into this world, into this country, into this city, into this block, into this building, into this room, where they should learn their own uniqueness and one fine morning say softly, I am. I just think it's gorgeous. It's like poetry. So again, a great book. Thank you to Norton for this copy. It's really beautiful. I would highly recommend. Another memoir that I read / listened to, Erika Sanchez's Crying in the Bathroom. I never read I'm Not Your Perfect Mexican Daughter, but I would be totally game and curious to do it now. This is really good. She is really funny. I will say right out, I will say this would come with trigger warnings. There is a lot in here that is, she had contemplated suicide a lot. Abortion is discussed. So as funny as she is, it's not always, I wouldn't say it's a light read, but, and I listened to this as well, and she read it, but it's really, really, really good. Jamie Ford's The Many Daughters of Afong Moy. I really like this. This was one of the other books that I thought was really great. I talked about this before too. This is a multi-generational story, which begins with Afong Moy, who is considered to be the first Chinese woman to ever set foot in America. So I believe it's been a little bit that there's 6 stories from the various descendants. But what Jamie Ford is really focusing and what his kind of central point in the book is talking about the idea of inherited trauma, that something that happens to your forefathers can be passed down to these subsequent generations. It's wild. It's a real thing. And the way that he has it play out among these various women is really, 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 really interesting. I would say, there's a number of different stories and they cut back and forth. And I would say most of them were really interesting. Obviously, some were more interesting than the others. But overall, this was a completely solid read. If you like family dramas, if you like historical, if you like generational things, all of those things, you'll find this in here. It had a beautiful kind of crescendo, how he tethers the stories all together by the end. I thought it was really, really, really well done, as well as a really interesting afterword that I don't want to read to you anything about it because I don't want it to give away anything in the book. So, but I would recommend this as well. Maggie O'Farrell's The Marriage Portrait. I was going to do a separate video on this one completely and then decided, oh, what the hell. So here's the thing. I love Maggie O'Farrell. Hamlet, I'm telling you, 2 years ago was my favorite book of the year. So this was one of the books I was most anticipating. And I think it's okay. Part of it, it's not her writing at all. I think she's just truly an extraordinary writer. Visually, there is a sequence in the beginning where young Lucretia is, her father has a menagerie of animals in the basement of their house, in their castle. And he brings in a tiger at the start of it, and her interaction with the tiger is some of the most beautiful writing I've read all year. My problem with it was more just structurally where the story went, because, the book is about this girl, Lucretia, who gets married at 15, and it's a true story, and within a year, after getting married, she was dead. So it was never really, really discovered if the rumor was that her husband killed her, the Count, he was a duke. he was a duke, that the duke killed her. So she makes her own choice about what, creatively she thinks happened. And I totally get that. But knowing where the end is going, she does something creatively that I kind of saw, I don't think it's hard to miss as I've been talking to other people. Came on early and it kind of ruined the end for me, because when it takes place, I was kind of like, okay, so it's fine. I think it's a good book. Do I think it's a great book? No. Would I recommend it? If you're a Maggie O'Farrell fan, if you're a big history fan, sure. I know there's plenty of people who have loved this. For me, it just kind of missed the mark a little bit, which was disappointing because, like I said, I was so excited about it. It's not bad, but it's not fantastic. Lastly is Alice Feeney's Daisy Darker, little thriller action. Alice Feeney, I really enjoyed her His and Hers, and I also enjoyed, she had, what was the other one that I really liked that she had? Rock, Paper, Scissors. I liked that one too. This, Daisy Darker, is one of those locked room mysteries. It's kind of her homage to Agatha Christie's And Then There Were None, about a kind of hateful family that goes to spend the weekend at their grandmother's house, which is on an island. The girl that's narrating, the youngest daughter who is narrating the story, Daisy Darker, has two sisters. And then there's a guy who kind of grew up with them. And her mother and father, but they're all, besides Daisy, they're all pretty awful. And they all start to die one by one. And so the mystery becomes who is killing everyone. It's totally fun. This to me is like, if you're looking for a fun, quick, spooky read for October, this can completely be it. It would probably be a very fun movie. I didn't think it was gonna win any awards or anything. I didn't think it was amazing, but I certainly thought it was entertaining. Alice Feeney is a queen of the twist, and I think one of the twists I figured out fairly early, but I can't even say figured out, but I guessed something. But the other stuff I did not. And I'll be interested if you read this, what you thought, because I think that the ending could be a little polarizing. It didn't bother me per se. I know I'm being very mysterious, but so anyway, it's fine. Like what I would say, yeah, it's not bad, but it's nothing that I was like, you have to get Daisy Darker. Oh my gosh. So that was my month. I'm gonna have my October list out here. In the next few days, I was going through and picking stuff. I like to do a little seasonal picking for October, but the NBA shortlist, which I'm gonna try to read, I haven't started I've read one of those books, but I haven't started any of those. I was hoping to get into those already, but there's only so much you can do. So, all right, I hope you all are having an amazing day. And thanks for stopping by. And again, if you've liked what you've seen today, please like and subscribe. Tell your friends. And I will see you all soon.